Hi, it's Ramsey Dewey at the JX Fight Club in Shanghai, China. Welcome to another edition of Q&A with the Coach. Our first question comes from our friend Ari, who says, how much fighting experience would you recommend before coaching other potential fighters? Okay, that is a very interesting question, Ari. Because historically, some of the greatest coaches ever did not have a lot of fighting experience. One example I bring up a lot is Ray Arcel, a boxing coach, one of the greatest boxing coaches who himself never boxed. So how does that work? Well, simply put, coaching and fighting are two different abilities. They're two different skill sets, two different talents. And being a good fighter does not guarantee you'll be a good coach. Being a good coach does not mean you're a good fighter. There are some individuals who can do both, and do both fantastically. There was an interview I read a while back with Firas Zahabi. He's a fantastic coach at the TriStar Gym. Check out the TriStar Gym channel here on YouTube, and you'll be able to listen to his Q&A and see a lot of great videos and content he has. And he was asked, what makes you different from most MMA coaches? And he said, I spar with my fighters. And to a lot of people, they might think, well, shouldn't the coach always spar with the fighters? Well, not necessarily. No, I do. Firas Zahabi does, but not everybody does. Take a look at Greg Jackson, for example. Greg Jackson is often revered as one of the great coaches in the sport of mixed martial arts. But he's not the guy who steps in the cage to spar with John Jones to get him ready for his fight. He's not the guy who steps in the ring to be the sparring partner for Holly Holm to get her ready for her fights. He is the tactician. He is the mind behind the training who helps give them the game plan that they need to win, and that's a different skill set. But Firas is unique because he himself is an athlete, and he is able physically to step in the cage and spar with these guys, to roll with them, to box with them, to kickbox with them, to scrap with them a little bit. And again, not every coach is able to do that. Not every coach needs to do that. Now, again, I do, because at the ripe old age of 40, I'm still able to, and I love it. And I love being able to give hands-on instruction to my students in the most intimate way possible. Face-to-face, hand-to-hand. And I'm going to do that for as long as I can. And I understand, that's not something you can always do. I mean, look at one of my favorite coaches of all time, the late, great Billy Robinson. Awesome catch wrestling coach. At an advanced age, the man was walking with a cane, but he was still in the gym coaching fighters like Josh Barnett. But he wasn't scrapping with them. He wasn't wrestling with them. He was not physically able to do it like he could have 40 years previously. But man, that man had a fount of information and knowledge and wisdom to share and impart, and nobody could question that. Another of my favorite coaches, a guy back in the U.S. named Brian Yamasaki. He's got a gym with Brandon Kaiser. I believe they're called Mushin Self-Defense over in Utah. And I've talked to Brian a few times about this. He does not have an extensive fight record. I believe his MMA fight record is 1 win and 1 loss, and his professional Muay Thai record is 1 win and 1 loss. And most people would look at those numbers and think, oh, well, this guy's not very good. Except this is a guy who has coached fighters from nothing all the way to the UFC. How does that work? Well, again, the fight records, that MMA math, and actual abilities are not always the same thing. And when I've talked to Brian about this, he's a little touchy about it because he is a very good fighter. He does have abilities to back up his claims. I mean, he walks the walk. He scraps with his students. He spars with them. But at the same time, his strength is coaching. I mean, if he wanted to, he could have done a lot more fights. But what he was interested in was helping other people to win fights. So, again, they're two separate things. Now, I would recommend, at least for most people, at least have some fighting experience so that you know what the sport is firsthand. And one of the biggest reasons, it's not even the technical aspect of being good at martial arts or being good at fighting. It's understanding what a fighter is going through mentally and psychologically leading up to that, understanding the anxiety involved in a professional or an amateur fight, understanding the adrenaline dump that a fighter experiences so that you are able to help coach a fighter through that, especially if you are also working as a cornerman. Because one of the most important things a cornerman can do, and a cornerman is different than a coach, and a coach is different than a teacher or an instructor. Those are all different functions. But if you're a coach or an instructor also working as a cornerman, it is imperative that you understand what it is like to face that kind of anxiety, that huge buildup before the fight, so that you can help your fighter to stay calm and composed and in control. Help them to act rather than to react. And if you've never experienced that before, it's going to be difficult to relate. So in short, some experience is usually better than none. I hope that answers your question. Let's take a look at the next question.